Well, good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you all, and welcome to Bonn for those that are joining in person. And for those joining us online, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from those thousands that are actually joining us across the globe. Um, my name is Kama Praviranagara, Deputy Director of the Global Landscapes Forum, and it's such a pleasure to welcome everybody here in this beautiful C4 of ICRAF office in Bonn. I myself come from Indonesia. I'm very blessed and being actually raised in Indonesia, a country that has so many beautiful biodiversity forests. But as we can see, these forests and the livelihoods of the people that depends on them are under pressure. Now, from biodiversity loss, from climate crisis to really important, I think, serious challenges. I'm really happy that we are meeting here today to be able to actually address them. And we all know also about the kind of like current global situations that are there. So it's really serious. But look at here, I'm very positive. This room full with you, but also online. This is exactly what we need. This is an incredible global community that is also led by local voices of the South, across the landscapes, across the regions, across sectors, and across generations. So I'm really hopeful that we can address a lot of discussions over here. And it couldn't be in a more important time with COP30 also on the horizons. And we're also on the edge of a new decade of actions, and we definitely need to make it right. We need leaderships that is bold, that is inclusive, that is also grounded from the community, from indigenous peoples to local leaders, also youth, scientists, policymakers. We need to act all together. We need to connect. We need to learn, share, and act. We can make it work. We have still time, I think. Yeah, I'm looking really forward for the next couple of days to have these discussions with all of you and also those that are online. We'd like to thank all the participants, all online audiences, and also all of our donors and partners that have been really, continuously supporting us throughout this journey. So thank you for the government of Germany. Also, thank you for the government of Norway, the government of Canada, Luxembourg, and also the GEF, the World Bank, and many others, the 35 charter members that have been supporting us throughout the ways. So I'm sure that you're very excited to do this together. And without further ado, let's get it started. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to connect with all of you. I would like to welcome all of you once again who are joining us here in person and the ones who are joining us globally. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much. As they have said, we connect, share, learn, and act. In this opening plenary today, we are going to explore interconnectedness of forest, climate, biodiversity, and local communities. We'll also reflect on the urgency of actions, how we align global finance with local solution, and set the stage for forest protection and restoration over the next decade. Today is a very important day, and as a reminder, we need everybody to understand what is being said. So this event is being broadcasted. It's being translated in different languages. So if you're joining us here in person and maybe you'd like to have this session in a different language, that just scan your QR code on your badge and you'll be able to join with the different language that you would like this to happen. But without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Eliane Obalijoro, who is the CEO of C4 ISFA and Director of General of ICRAF, who will provide an opening perspective on the critical role forest plays in ensuring that everything is how we expect it and we want it to happen. Let's welcome Dr. Eliane. Please, round of applause.
Hello, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to GLF Forest 2025, defining the priorities for the next decade. Whether you're in person in Bonn or joining virtually, it's clear this is a pivotal moment for our planet. What we do and what we don't do in the coming days and months matters. For many of the brilliant scientists at C4ICRAF, everything about forests, from their conservation, their role in local economies, how they support communities who rely on them, and more, is our life's work. Forests absorb the carbon dioxide equivalent of about 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions each year. And with the right protection and restoration efforts, they could deliver up to 1/3 of the cost-effective climate mitigation needed by 2030. Forests are home to over 80% of terrestrial biodiversity. Forests provide food and livelihoods for more than 1 billion people. And forests shape the water, air, and health systems that support all life on Earth. And most critically of all, forests remain a central foundation for life on our planet. We have no better support system than nature, but nevertheless, forests are in crisis. We lost more than 6 million hectares of forest just last year. That's double the size of Belgium. This undermines our climate goals, drives species extinction, and threatens food and water security for millions. Without urgent change, we risk triggering irreversible tipping points in key forest ecosystems, from the Amazon to Southeast Asia to the Congo Basin. And so, over the next 2 days, we will explore how we can shape the next decade to 2035 to secure the resilience and restoration forests must offer a rapidly changing world. This decade will decide whether forests can continue to offer resilience or whether we push them past the point of no return. We must ask ourselves, how can we move from fragmented efforts to a shared global commitment that places forests where they belong, at the center of climate stability, biodiversity protection, and sustainable development? The science is clear. Forests are a cornerstone of any credible pathway to climate and biodiversity targets. At C4ICRAF, we fully endorse the recent 2030 Global Forest Vision put forward by the Forest Declaration Assessment. The vision outlines a focused agenda of urgent priorities aimed at ending deforestation by 2030, a goal that remains within reach if we act swiftly and in a coordinated manner. These priorities include renewing global ambition, promoting deforestation-free trade, securing land rights, empowering indigenous people and local communities, strengthening governance, and significantly scaling up finance. Endorsing a vision is only the first step. The immediate challenge is turning it into concrete action and doing so at the pace the crisis demands. The second challenge is ensuring that the progress we make by 2030 endures well beyond it. While deforestation can be halted this decade, sustaining forest resilience will require long-term thinking starting now. Which of these priorities is more urgent than others? Which required sustained investment, coordination, and governance reforms over a longer time horizon, and how can we secure this? What kind of policy shifts will match the scale and speed of this crisis? How can we unlock financing that is just, effective, and rooted in local leadership? How can Indigenous peoples, women, and youth be recognized not only as stakeholders, but as primary change agents? Because forests take decades to grow, but only moments to lose. We must pause to reflect on how we think about forests, land, and water, especially in the context of a tightening global development finance landscape. As we watch donor countries reducing their development aid budgets, prioritization and efficiency become more than buzzwords. They become survival strategies. Yet, this is also an opportunity, a moment to reconsider whether we are doing the right things, not just doing things right. If we are to make limited resources count and investing in the very foundations of life on this planet, healthy, functioning ecosystems as life support systems is not just a moral imperative, it is the smartest, most future-proof decision we can make. Let this conference be a turning point and help us forge a strong pathway towards results at and beyond COP30. To all of you from around the world, welcome again, and thank you for being part of this urgent conversation. I wish you a wonderful conference ahead.
Round of applause, round of applause. Wonderful message. Very, very wonderful message. He says, or she says, there are key takeaways Solution starts with all of us. It starts today. It starts now. So right now, I would like to welcome Mr. Paul Gurachochea, the Director of Sustainable Supply Chains, Agriculture and Food System, German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. Please share your insights with us. You're welcome.
Good morning to everyone in this room in Bonn, the nice city of Bonn. And also hello to the audience, the online audience. So it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here in Bonn, in Germany, at the Rhine River, a very beautiful location here. I've never been here, so the first time I lived in Bonn, but I have never been in this place. So it's excellent and really inspiring to be with you and sharing your insights with you. So as you know, forests face immense challenges from climate change and biodiversity loss to overexploitation of natural resources. Over 90% of deforestation is caused by the expansion of agriculture. Every year we lose more than 12 million hectares of tropical forests. And this loss is not just an environmental issue. It directly impacts livelihoods, communities, and economies. So protecting forests is not just a moral or environmental duty, but also an economic and social necessity. To tackle these threats effectively, we need integrated approaches, effective policy integration, and action across sectors that ensures that climate, biodiversity, addressing land degradation, and development goals are mutually reinforcing. Protecting and sustainably using forests is a key lever for implementing the 3 Rio Conventions and offers many synergies. And I would like to highlight especially the role of indigenous peoples and local communities. They often directly depend on forests and possesses unique knowledge on how to manage them sustainably. For them to continue preserving and sustainably using forests they must be engaged, they must be in the driver's seat in decision-making processes regarding their lands and resources. That is key to us. This helps to build resilience against climate change and support sustainable development. Germany is very committed to promoting forest preservation. BMZ has been active for a long time. We support forest programs in more than 40 countries. This includes key regions like the Amazon Basin, the Congo Basin, and Southeast Asia. We are highly engaged in initiatives such as the Legacy Landscapes Fund, the Central African Forest Initiative, and the African Forest Landscape Restoration Initiative. BMZ, that's the German Ministry for Development Cooperation, also supports an ambitious implementation of the Glasgow Leaders Declaration, the EU Regulation on Deforestation Pre-Products, EUDR, and the Global Biodiversity Framework, GBF. Through a Team Europe initiative on deforestation-free value chain, we do support the implementation of the EUDR together with the EU Commission and other EU member states. This initiative is already active in around 34 countries and has a budget of around 80 million. During my recent visit to Brazil, I was really very impressed to see how this Team in Europe initiative is supporting the implementation of the EUDR and triggers real change on the ground. different stakeholders from farmers over civil society to export associations work closely together these days to decouple agriculture from deforestation and make supply chains of agricultural commodities traceable and transparent. Looking ahead to Belém and the COP30 in Brazil, I think we have a unique opportunity to put forests, tropical forests, at the center of the international agenda. To reach the goal of halting deforestation and forest degradation by 2030, we need strong commitments, significant efforts and investments, including innovative financing solutions. One of those potential initiatives, one of those innovative solutions is a Tropical Forest Forever facility that Brazil is proposing. Germany currently supports the development of the TFFF, which is addressing key gaps for nature and people and investing in the protection of standing forests. Governments, the private sector, donors, and local communities all have a role to play in this. Governments definitely have a key role by setting ambitious policies for forest preservation, but we also call on the private sector to implement their voluntary commitments on deforestation-free supply chains and the mandatory EUDR, and to increase their efforts to balance emissions through offsetting, sustainable afforestation, and forest restoration. The next 5 years will be decisive. We must better integrate forest protection into national and international strategies and increase ambition in our targets. We also need to create momentum for stronger synergies between the three Rio Conventions, including a better alignment of nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and land degradation neutrality targets. Let us work together, governments, communities, private sector, private actors, and international partners to protect our forests and secure a sustainable future. I think the time really is to act now, and together, you and us, we can make a difference. Thank you very much, and hopefully a very, very productive 2 days in front of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. We appreciate, as he has says, decisive. We have to be very decisive, work together in making sure that we protect our forest. So thank you very much also our key speakers. We now dive into our first panel where we get to discuss and explore how we can align finance, policy, and land use to protect forest and rebuild resilience landscapes. And we are honored to welcome our panelists who will be joining us online or digitally. We will have Hege Rang-Hilstestein, Acting Director and Senior Advisor, Norway International Climate and Forest Initiative. But also we will have Dr. Joko Triyanto, President and Director of Indonesia Environmental Fund and Senior Researcher of Fiscal Policy Agency for Climate Change Financing and Multilateral Policy from the Ministry of Finance, Indonesia. We'll also have Dr. Julia Biao, who is the Director Secretariat of the United Nations Forum on Forest, UNNF, who will have a pre-recorded messages for us. Please welcome our panelists, please. Thank you very much. And without further ado, we will just dive in quickly right into Hege. I would like to ask you, how do you see the role of order evolving for forest protection and the reduction of deforestation? Also, we would like to know what funding models or mechanism have proven most effective in your line of duty. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And sorry for not being there with you in person. So I'm the director of the Norwegian International Climate and Forest Initiative. We are one of the world's largest climate and forest initiatives. We were established in 2008 at the Climate COP in Bali in Indonesia. And we were just extended as an initiative to last until 2035. So that is just a point to prove that the Norwegian government has a very long-term horizon when it comes to supporting tropical forest countries in reducing deforestation and forest degradation, as well as protecting forests and working with local communities and for sustainable development. I'll have three key points on what is effective. One, our approach is to work very closely with governments in tropical forest countries, because we believe that it is only through political will and strong national ownership to reducing deforestation in tropical forest countries that we can reach the desired results. So our approach is mainly a results-based approach where we pay or contribute with funding to countries that have a proven track record of reducing deforestation and who at the same time deliver on ambitious policies for changing their forest and land use sectors. Building or supporting the establishment of strong national institutions and monitoring systems is a part of that effort. So since 2008, we've supported Indonesia, Brazil, Peru, and many other countries. Secondly, supporting indigenous peoples and local communities and strengthening their land rights is really key, both in terms of policies and partnerships backed with funding. Thirdly, we do need to mobilize more finance from the private sector if we are to succeed. And ODA funds can be used to de-risk and help mobilize that private funding. Our approach has mainly been to establish high integrity forest carbon markets, integrating high standards that create high confidence in the carbon market, mainly through a jurisdictional approach where national governments in tropical forest countries take strong ownership to how they want to reduce deforestation and forest degradation. And we do think that this focus on results, partnership, and mobilization is critical for the way ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hege. We appreciate. As we have had funding, it's really important. At the end of the day, we have goals. We are aligning more information every day. But every situation, to move from one place to another, funding has to be there and also ambitions to where we are going. So this next decade is going to be really important in aligning all these policies and moving forward. Also in our panel, we have Dr. Joko Triyanto. I would like to move on to you. How are you translating global policies into national forest and climate-related strategies and actions plans? Also, we will need to know from you, what are the challenges in aligning it? Because we are hearing like, this is how we have, this is what we are planning, these are the things that we would want to know. But how do we align to get into these goals?
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Samunjama. So first of all, best regard to Ibu Heke, our best collaboration, because from the Indonesian government with Norway, we have very close cooperation, collaboration, particularly since long time ago. So let me introduce. My name is Pak Joko Triharyanto. I'm the CEO of Indonesia Environment Fund. So this is quite interesting if we look from the lesson learned that we already done from the Indonesian case, because as we know that currently we suffering from, we call it triple planetary crisis, climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, and also a forest crisis. And if we look from the government's perspective, if we reverse from UNFCCC, of course, every single country must be committed under NDC 2030 as well as the SDG target 2030 and also the commitment under the UNCBD. But if we calculate from the financial requirement to achieve NDC target, at least from the Indonesian perspective, when the government of Indonesia is already committed reducing GHG emission 2030 around 31% and also with the international support until 43%. This is quite interesting because if we calculate the financial requirement, the government of Indonesia measure that we need almost 280 billion US dollar. This is quite very big investment. And we cannot only rely from the government capacity. We cannot rely on the government budget. Because when we calculate annually from the government capacity, no more than 30%. So we need collaboration. But the government of Indonesia cannot offer the conventional business process. That's why the government of Indonesia was established my institution now, Indonesia Environment Fund, to become the center of consolidation, the center of collaboration. Because when the Indonesia Environment Fund established in 2019, we have some flexibility, we have high integrity, and also a transparency, accountability. So we can collect money from all those financial resources, both set from the international, from the domestic, from the MDBs, from the philanthropies, from the foundation, and then we can deliver with high integrity to all those intended beneficiaries, including the indigenous people and local community. So this is the urgency of Indonesia Environment Fund as the new approach, the new breakthrough from the government to enhance and also fostering the government capacity to enhance the reachment of the NDC target 2030. But we are still facing many challenges, of course, because in many times Indonesia Environment Fund still lack of capacity, still face in the technical aspect. That's why we always need some collaboration with other institutions like Norway government and also other donor, other partners in order to provide a very good and also excellent services to all the beneficiaries. Thank you, Ibu moderator.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. Yeah, right now we will directly dodge to Dr. Juliet Biao, who has pre-recorded messages for us concerning what progress has been made. Because everybody here, you have heard, we are planning, we're thinking, this is what is being attained. But she's more or less going to give us on the UN strategic plan for forest of 2030 and how convention and strategies can be leveraged to support forest while navigating political uncertainty. Please, let's hear from Dr. Juliet Biao.
Distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to address you today at the Global Landscape Forum, GLF, as we define the next decade of action for our forest. As we are in the era of mounting environmental challenges, the forest agenda remains central to achieving sustainable development goals. Forests are at the heart of global environmental and economic sustainability. Despite their immense value, forests continue to face deforestation, degradation, and unsustainable exploitation. The Global Landscape Forum has become a crucial global platform with its thematic pillars, including landscape restoration, finance, and measuring progress, aligning with the United Nations Forum on Forests strategic vision to foster collaboration to address the global challenges of deforestation and landscape degradation. GLF has also played a pivotal role in integrating the forest agenda within the broader landscape approach, bringing together the key stakeholders. One of the key goals of the United Nations Strategic Plan for Forests, UNSPF, is to reverse the loss of forest cover globally through a range of actions, including conservation, restoration, and sustainable forest management. A new global monitoring and assessment report is expected in early 2025, which will provide concrete data and insights on the progress made under the UNSPF. However, the most recent reports indicate that we are significantly behind in achieving the global forest goals and associated targets. Among other challenges, insufficient financing remains a major barrier to achieving internationally agreed targets, including the global forest goals. The current level of funding for the protection, restoration, and sustainable management of forests falls significantly short, with less than 1% of the estimated $460 billion required annually. Despite growing recognition of the role of forests in climate action, the forest sector receives only 2% of global climate finance. We are now confronted with an unprecedented challenge in the environmental financing landscape, driven by shifts in the global political economy. Addressing this issue is critical to accelerating progress and ensuring the sustainable management of forests worldwide. As we look ahead, the next decade of action, we must build upon the progress made under the UNSPF and the Global Forest Goals. The coming decade presents both challenges and opportunities, and our priorities must be clear. First, to effectively drive the next decade of forest action, we must align our efforts. Synergistic and collective actions are essential for impactful and sustainable ecosystem restoration, as well as for achieving global forest goals of the UNSPF. Second, unprecedented challenges demand unprecedented action. We must ignite innovative public and private financing to catalyze the required finances to achieve global forest goals and targets. Innovative financing models such as carbon market, green bonds, and payment for ecosystem services should be expanded to incentivize forest-friendly policies and practices. We need a paradigm shift to address the fragmentation of forest funding to ensure a coordinated, sustainable, and consistent flow of financing, creating a unified funding landscape for the forest sector. The United Nations Forum on Forest Secretariat remains committed to assisting member states within its mandate in devising a global forest financing strategy and providing access to comprehensive data on forest financing through the Global Forest Financing Facilitation Network, GFFN, and the Clearinghouse. We will continue working toward these goals. Third, accountability is key to ensuring that our effort translated into tangible results. The year 2025 marks an important milestone for assessing the progress made on the global forest goals of the UNSPF. I urge member states to provide the requested data and information. To facilitate smooth implementation, UNFF has introduced an online reporting system which has been communicated to the focal points of member states. I invite countries to prepare and submit their next national report to UNFF by June 2025 using the online platform. Finally, as we look ahead to COP30 in Brazil, let us commit to work together to conserve, restore, and sustainably manage forests for the benefit of people and the planet. Let us embrace this decade as a defining moment for forests, landscape, and future generations. I look forward to continuing our partnership and meeting you at the UNFF 20th session in May to advance the implementation of the UNSPF and achieve the global forest goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful message. But before we move on, I would still indulge our panelists. I need to know, after hearing from each and every speaker in terms of the planning and the thoughts and the way forward, I will start with you, Dr. Joko. Would you have key takeaways after hearing from Dr. Juliet, but also from Hege, please?
Yeah. So from our financing perspective, we know that very challenging if we talk about how to overcome the triple planetary crisis, particularly from the financial side. That's why we are really need we really agree with Hege that we really need a more collaboration, more active connection, more active engagement, with all those stakeholders, including from the government, non-government actor, and also indigenous people and local community. And then we put indigenous people and local community as a shareholder, not only stakeholder but shareholder, because they are we put them as the ultimate goal, ultimate beneficiary. And then from the financial perspective, of course, we realize that we cannot rely only from the government budget, because many government really suffer from many obstacles. That's why we need to be more creative, to be more innovative, to produce innovative financial scheme in order to deal with the global challenge, particularly when we try to provide best excellent services to indigenous people and local community as our shareholder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joko. Now to you, Hege, what do you reflect on everything that fellow panelists have explained in this panel, please?
Thank you. I agree very much with my friend Joko, the previous panelist. So it's good to speak after him. But for the way ahead, I think we really need to focus on results. Because many tropical forest countries, including Indonesia, Brazil, Colombia, and others, are delivering very impressive results in reducing deforestation. And that helps both mitigate climate change and preserve biodiversity and combat poverty and strengthen rights. That's things that benefit all of us, the whole planet. It's a global service that these countries deliver. And we have to step up our action from the global north and support these countries in their ambitious strategies. And we need to mobilize not just public funding, but mobilize more high-integrity private investments, both in high-integrity carbon markets, as well as working with the agricultural production and other commodities on becoming more sustainable along the whole supply chain. Secondly, we do need to link rights and poverty eradication strongly to forests, right? Forests are also very important for water security. It's a breadbasket. It's an insurance program, you may say, both for local communities and indigenous peoples, as well as for the rest of us. So we need to work more on seeing the nexus between forests and other very important sustainable development goals. And many countries are now working together under the Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership. We are working to mobilize stronger land tenure security for indigenous peoples and local communities across tropical forest countries. I'm optimistic that more countries will join these efforts that's strongly backed by the indigenous movement. I think this could be a big breakthrough as we're moving towards the COP30 in Belém. But focusing on impact and results is key for the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Defining the next decade of action is really, really important. But also we live, people are following us, they have questions in terms of what is going on. Maybe could we have the charts on our digital audience? What are they saying? We need to see what they're saying and maybe what comments they have. Let's see. We see Haida, he's just saying hello and thank you. So hi from wherever you're watching, we are grateful. Thank you. Anna, thank you very much. And Nancy Barisa is also. Let's see if there's any questions. Thank you very much for all of us who are joining, or for all of you who are joining us live. We are grateful that you're there. Maseret, thank you very much. Where I come from, we say if you hear your name being mentioned online or on TV, you're grateful. So I guess this is actually very involving. So thank you very much. And thank you, our panelists, for joining us. But now we move on to the next panel, which we will have some speakers here on the panel live, and then we'll have others joining us digitally. Here we will have Deborah Sanchez, Director of Community Land Rights and Conservation Finance Initiative. Welcome. She's here in person. Welcome, Deborah. We will also have Dr. Kate Dooley, who is the Land Gap Report and author and research fellow from the University of Melbourne, who is joining us digitally. As you can see, we welcome Kate. We will also have Camille Rivera Roa, Restoration Steward, Westland 2021, and GLF Mindanao Coordinator, who is also joining us digitally from Bogoa office. You're welcome. Actually very happy. And then we'll be joined by Teresa Clara Loch, who is also joining us. He's an International Forest Students Association, also joining us digitally. Let's see the smile. We are having good plans, yeah? So we dig in directly, and I am told now that I have to go up here and continue with this information. Hi, Deborah. You're welcome. Don't feel left out while we are sitting around here. I am with you and we can communicate effectively. So this panel, ladies and gentlemen, is going to more or less be delivering on the community's turning pledges into actions. There are a lot of pledges that are being made every day from different organizations, governments, private sectors, but now we need to know what are they planning? How do we turn these pledges into actions? And here, Deborah, you're here with me, I would dive to you directly, is how can greater support be provided to communities? Because you work in more with communities and all that. We need to know, including indigenous people and Afro-descent groups, how to enhance access to funds.
Thank you, and I'm honored to be here, so thank you for having me. I will say greet to everyone online as well, so Tita Niamni, Tut Niamni, and Tihmia Yamni in my indigenous language. To all of you, greetings. So I think when I see how can we turn pledges into action, some of the reflection that comes to me is enable. So this has enabled us to, for example, in our case, I'm here on behalf of our indigenous-led funding mechanisms. So we are part of the big solidarity network of Rights and Resource Initiative with more than 200 rights holder organizations around the globe. And when we come to see how little funding is going directly to the ground, as an indigenous movement, as an Afro-descendant movement, and IPLC is, as like the acronym, is part of how we've been able to connect, discuss, create, grow, scale these funding mechanisms. And in the governance of these mechanisms are led by indigenous people, in our case, from Kenya and Nepal, and a local representative from Mexico. And that's the same governance pretty much a structure that all the other funds has. So now I feel as a part of a community of IPLC-led funding mechanism. We had a great a joint meeting in Brazil earlier in February, and we were able to discuss things around what are still the barriers that we see in there for the funding to reach to our brothers and sisters, right? The people that is there in the community, in the forest. The one has to deal with mining, with illegal logging. When you are there and instead of hearing the sound of a big monkey, you are hearing this chainsaw. And you know it's not legally, and how that's evolving. So that feeling of not being able to do more when you want to rescue Mother Earth is very, I think is a very frustrating feeling that now these funds are being enabled, this pledge has been enabled us to come together and redefine with our principles how the funding should go to the ground. And one last point is, we had a meeting like 2 weeks ago, and one of our organizations, they don't have a legal entity, so that's another barrier, right? So we said, okay, you can go ahead and find a fiscal sponsorship. So they went out and found this NGO and asked them to manage the funds and support administratively. But the most impressive thing is, on the paradigm shift, the NGO came to me and said, that's the first time in my life, because everything is that me having the money and going to the community, not the community of the Indigenous Federation having the funds, deciding what they want to do with it, and then just coming to me as a partner. So I think that shift on how governance, who is deciding about the funds is really key.
It is really important to figure out. It's not sometimes how we always expect, but how we work together, we move forward. Now I would go directly to Dr. Kate. For you, I would like to know, based on your work and land gap report, can you please share with us what are the major feasibility challenges that are being currently faces in terms of policy pledges for land-based climate solutions, and what do you see opportunities to bridge these gaps? How do we make sure that we properly align all these areas, please?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So I wanted to talk about the land gap report, which is a report that we published in 2022. And the big finding of this was that we looked at all of the government's national climate mitigation pledges for 2030 in NDCs, but also for 2050 in long-term strategies. And we looked at how much land would be required to meet the mitigation component of those pledges, where mitigation relied on land. And in aggregate, the area of land was 1 billion hectares. So this is a really large area of land. It raises a lot of questions around what are the current uses of those lands, who lives in those lands, where are these areas of land, which is information that is not given in the pledges for the most part. They're quite abstract pledges. So in terms of the feasibility challenges and how the issues this raises, the first is that this would imply, if governments implemented their climate mitigation pledges for net zero with the amount of land currently stated in those pledges, it would imply an unprecedented rate of land use change in terms of reforestation, so tree planting, and in terms of energy crops for bioenergy. And this would bring great risks to food security, to land rights, to people already, Indigenous peoples and communities trying to secure land rights. I think from we looked at all government pledges to come up with this number. And from doing that, from reading through the pledges, from seeing what was happening, I think that it really comes down in some ways to the intent of countries behind their climate mitigation policies around land use. So for many, in fact, the very large pledges that we saw, over 70% of that land area, of that 1 billion hectares, came from just 4 countries: Russia, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and the United States. Now, these countries are all wealthy countries and all fossil fuel exporting or fossil fuel producing countries. And so this leaves me with very little faith that the pledges in here are well intended to reflect regenerative or restorative good land use policies. On the other hand, most least developing countries had much smaller areas of land, but the pledges around land and climate change were focused on agricultural regeneration, agroforestry, restoration. And so I think the intent there is likely to deliver better outcomes. And overall, we need climate mitigation. In terms of the land sector, climate mitigation pledges should be developed in synergy or in conjunction with adaptation pledges, because mitigation and adaptation really should look like the same thing in the land sector.
Thank you very much, Kate. Now I think we should move directly to Bogor, where Camille Rivera Roa. I would like you to reflect on the experiences you're working with, because being in the field, mangroves in particular, with community-led, how can we improve the alignment and the global forest policies from your base, from where you come from, and exactly what you deal with every day, please?
Thank you so much for the question. I just also want to thank people here in Bogor. So we are here for the last 3 days. I just want to shout out with the people that are here, and we've talked a lot about Asia, different landscapes, and actually in terms of what we've discussed here for the last 3 days, we still face the same challenges, the same issues in the governance and in the conservation targets. So I just want to mention that we are here in Bogor. Going back to your question on about the local communities and about how we can bridge the gap, I want to center to the word collaboration and really talking to each other, because I can give 2 examples that are very successful in the work we do. And that was when we started the restoration tour that I did together with Global Landscapes, where we rehabilitate abandoned fish ponds to mangrove forest. And what really showcased there was that the local communities already know about what they're doing. They already know about local ecological knowledge, but they just needed more funding to be able to scale up. And so we were able to give them the funding. We were able to collaborate together with their local knowledge and the science of mangrove rehabilitation. And only then it was really successful. In fact, we got into 70% success rate for our mangrove rehab. And with that in mind, they were able to give that knowledge to other local municipalities. They were able to share that. And then in the end, we also saw that the local leader, Ate Delilah, she became the best fisherfolk awardee in the province. So it's such a big, for us in Oceanos and the work we do, a big win when the local communities win and they got recognized. The second one that was really successful was we were also giving training on bird identification, how to collaborate migratory birds and mangrove, because migratory birds come to Philippines as part of the East Asia Flyway route. And what really integral in that was that the local leader, I have to mention his name, he used to be Sir Drexel. He used to be a bird hunter when he was young, and knowing about the importance of birds and the migratory birds, he became now a bird protector in the mangrove area. In fact, there is now a bird watching group in that area, and then now the data that the locals collect is now very important in bridging the key biodiversity area for the Talabong Mangrove Reserve. So you can see that from what we gave them the capacity, the training, they become now the protectors. So from hunters now to protectors of the mangroves and the migratory birds. And I just want to conclude that it's all about collaboration, because it brings me to the point that most of the global forest policies are a very top-down approach, and metrics around like carbon metrics or biodiversity targets, it's very top-down, and there's no voices of the local communities and especially indigenous people. And what I want to emphasize is that one way, and we've discussed this many, many times here in the last 3 days, is that we need that collaboration where we co-design together with the locals, where the monitoring frameworks has to redefine what success is, because for local communities, success is very different. It's about survival. It's about like they want, it's about fisheries. It's about natural resources. It's about culture. And it's not about the targets that was placed upon them from the top. So we need to foster that partnership collaboratively. We also need to have that accountability in terms of those targets. And then the next point is really about investing on the training, capacity building, and also the funding is really something very important for local communities, because without funding, they cannot really scale up. And without the recognition, they cannot share also to local communities, other local communities, and there's no scaling to other different areas. So we need to invest in this capacity training, skills, and funding, so that we can bridge the gap where, you know, local initiatives can go into the policy framework. So that will be all.
Thank you very much, Camille. Yeah, as you have heard, I think education is much more important. From Deborah, you could hear how important it is in terms of education, what people need to know, what the community needs to know, and get that into actions. And that's why now we are diving directly to Teresa Clara Loch, who is more of definitely going to tell us what shifts are needed in forest education and capacity building to support the next generation of forest stewards, because education, as is key in everything, so is if people, generations are not aware on what are the do's and don'ts, what do we need to do, Teresa?
Yeah, hi everybody, and thank you also for having me. And it's such an honor also to speak after Camille now. I feel like she also already summarized in her last bits how important capacity building and education is. And I guess I'm just going to follow up on it for a bit. So I think the first most important point is always that forest education must address more real-world challenges, discussing among IFSA members all around the world. So, I mean, I'm speaking here currently from the UK, but we see the pattern all around the world among our members that outdated models are still emphasized in a lot of forestry programs, and they just simply don't reflect today's climate, social, and ecological realities. And it sometimes feels like we are seeing, as students, we are seeing the move in forestry research and practices are kind of moving forward, but somehow forest education seems to be lagging behind. And it feels like that basically the education is sometimes underestimated within the sector, even though we are the new generation of forestry students, and we are the ones who will basically shape and hopefully shape the future of our forests. So what we are really hoping for is that we need to get rid of outdated approaches. And sometimes new methods and insights exist, but older practices often dominate, sometimes out of habit, sometimes because people have just been doing things and teaching things the way they've been doing it for the last 30, 40 years. Sometimes it's also path dependencies, but often it's also lack of resources. So already coming back to the funding, you know, like bringing up a new educational plan or updating the curriculum is not something, yeah, maybe something people do in their free time, but it should be something more implemented and included within the universities and educational systems. So we really want the education to be more adapted continuously, because we see with climate change and all the global struggles that forest and forest governance is just changing rapidly. And what also already has been coming up in the last two insights is that we need more context-based and practice-oriented learning. So really having case studies and field experiences, and maybe in the university setting also inter- and transdisciplinary methods, which can actually connect the sector with other disciplines, because we are learning more and more that forestry is not just about trees, but around everything which is surrounding them and living in them. And this would hopefully help us to understand forest actually as a social ecological system from the first class we take in our forestry education, and living in a very globalized world. And I don't want to say that like none of this already exists. There are definitely great study programs out there which are evolving every year. There are new forestry programs coming out, and especially ones which also foster a global perspective on the sector and also help in exchange among students. So forestry students that really bridge also the great disparity between the global north and the global south, really seeing like, all right, how are things working here? How are things working there? And why are they working? And what are like colonial legacies basically in these parts? So it's really helpful to have forestry programs that bridge these areas to help us understand our role as foresters within our very localized context, the place we study and the community, but also very much within the global forestry sector. And another big part, which is always very important to me, is also that we need to integrate more diversity and gender equality within the forestry education. I'm sure many of you know that forestry traditionally in a lot of places around the world has been a very man-dominated sector, and we still see so many structural barriers, discriminations, simply fewer role models and unequal accesses to resources, but also limited mentorship, which is so important in education. And again, there are, I feel like in the last 5 to 10 years, so many great initiatives around which really aim to include more Indigenous knowledge, aim to include more people who haven't been seeing themselves in the forestry sector before. And one of them is the Fogedi MOOC, a massive open online class on forest, which is fostering gender equality, diversity, and inclusion in forest-related sectors. And we've been seeing that quite a lot of people actually engaged in these online programs because it's something they maybe cannot get in their local university, but then can use it as an open access. However, we also see that we need to make use of these global resources. So even though forestry is often quite localized, we should incorporate these global efforts around the world and initiatives and all the great things we're hearing today to actually be integrated in the classrooms. And this not just as an add-on, but as a substantial part of our education. So summing up, I guess forest education should equip students not only with the knowledge about forests, but with the capacity to protect and manage them within their social ecological context. And we should discuss with the students as well what they see as relevant in their local places, right? Like I think Camille also touched upon like top-down approaches, which are still in place. So maybe we could also bring bottom-up approaches into education and seeing, all right, what do we want to learn? But yeah, so I guess that means that we want education to be more critical, to be more inclusive, and to be more adaptive, and thereby very much grounded in lived realities.
So thank you very, very much. As you have heard, it seems these wonderful ladies have more and more information to share, but time is not also on our side. I'll get back to you, Deborah. Takeaways from what you have heard from fellow panelists. What do you think of everybody's saying about education, aligning communities, indigenous people? What do we do? What is the way forward and takeaways that you have taken from fellow colleagues?
Thank you. I think partnership is one of the words also that comes to my mind, but also like recognitions. So we talk about education. We also have to talk about indigenous knowledge, for example, on the forest. It's also when we see everything also comes to funding, right? To how we make funding available to the ground. And I think how can we really partner together with all the sectors, also the government wills and political wills to develop laws, but also looking at how diverse and how this process of land rights, indigenous rights, is so different, so diverse, based on the situation. So we have experienced land rights recognition from the traditional authorities on a community that are recognizing for the first time that women has rights to the land in that community. That is not a paper, it's not a government, but it's a recognition from culture, it's a recognition from the people that you are surrounded. And then we are seeing all the way to policy changes on community forest management, being able to give the governance of forests to many communities in DRC, for example, in the Congo Basin, or enable Peru and IDESEP communities to title their lands in the reform. So we see different, and I think the approach and how can we tackle this together have to be with a very open-minded, recognizing the role of everyone and also partnering together. And I say that we should keep the momentum, we should keep the pledge, we should make all the best effort to have the second pledge on place, because he's been enable us, for example, in our case, to have around 100 projects working with more than 67 organizations, indigenous, Afro-descendant, and local communities in around 16 million hectares of land where they can govern in different ways. And that is a very little contribution. So there is a lot more there that has to be happen. And I think it's in the hands of us to really make it sure that we're coming together. And we see that there is philanthropy governments like Germany in our case are supporting us in this journey, but we need, how can we bring more people from different sectors? How can we bring and open this discussion to those that are not in the room? I think that's another challenge for us in this next decade. So how can we involve more people around this? So I will say partnering, I will say solidarity in this time is really key, and working together to define what is meaningful for us and how can we really support the people in the front line of communities.
Wonderful, Deborah. And shout out to the people who are watching us or following from Bogor. You're seeing the wonderful audience following it live. So thank you very much. Dr. Kate, maybe finalize on what are your takeaway in this short time that we had to discuss about what you think and what's up. I'm told time is up. Can we please wrap it out, please? Thank you.
Yes, very briefly, partnering and collaboration. I think what I've heard from the other panelists, this also needs to be the case with NDCs. So NDCs shouldn't be top-down pledges, particularly so important in the land sector, that they're developed, co-designed with local communities, indigenous knowledge is brought into this, and that knowledge is fed up into what can be achieved in climate pledges.
Teresa, maybe let's say, summarize it in a sentence. What is your takeaway for today?
Yeah, thanks. I already reflected quite a bit on what Camille says, so I'll just say that I want to come back what Deborah said in the beginning, that there's like wanting to do more, but feeling like we cannot. It's such an important part. Also in education, like trees are growing forever. What can we do to impact them? And I think I just want to bring that in education, we should more focus on the capacities we have and what we can do. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Camille, to you, one more sentence before we close this wonderful panel of beautiful ladies, by the way. You have seen it's just typical ladies. Yes, please.
Thank you. I just want to mention that after everything, I think we need to understand and recognize that the locals are not just beneficiaries of the forest. We need to recognize that they live with nature, they know the nature, they know what's happening. So we need to recognize and put their voices out in COP30 and all the biodiversity targets we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful people, wonderful panelists. Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you very much, Dr. Kate. Thank you very much, Teresa and Camille and everybody who is joining us live. I would not have any more time to continue speaking. I would like to return the mic to the wonderful host, and thank you very much for having us, and I will have a wonderful conversation. Thank you. Yeah, at the end of the day, we started with opening remarks, so definitely we will need closing remarks, and we will have recorded closing remarks from Dr. Zihim Wu, Director of the FAO Forest Division, which is pre-recorded. We need to hear what he has to say in our closing remarks. Please welcome him.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to address the opening plenary of the GLF Forest 2025 event to discuss the future of forests. Covering more than 4 billion hectares, almost 1/3 of the Earth's land surface, forests play vital roles in addressing climate change, biodiversity loss, land degradation, hunger, poverty, and other global challenges. The outcome of the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement emphasized enhanced efforts towards halting and reversing deforestation and forest degradation by 2030. Achieving this goal would help cut greenhouse gas emissions by around 11% annually, maintain the majority of terrestrial biodiversity, restore crucial carbon sinks, regulate rainfall at local and regional scales, and provide jobs and livelihoods for millions of people. It is encouraging, therefore, that some countries have been able to reduce deforestation in recent years, affecting also regional trends, as the next global forest resource assessment to be published later this year is expected to show. But the challenges are still huge. For example, climate change is making forests worldwide more vulnerable to stressors such as wildfires and pests. Every year, up to 70 million hectares of forest are burned by wildfires and 35 million hectares of forest destroyed by pests and diseases, in addition to 10 million hectares lost to deforestation. Global wood production is at record levels, at about 4 billion cubic meters per year, and projections to 2050 indicate significant increases in wood demand. For example, 49% increase of global roundwood demand between 2020 to 2050. Meeting the UN Global Forest Goals target to increase forest cover globally by 3% by 2030 will require an additional 150 to 200 million hectares of new forests. FAO is initiating a global forest outlook study to 2030 and 2050 to present a global trend in conservation, sustainable production and use of forest resources, and to assess the implications of increases in forest cover and in biomass production for food security and environmental benefits. The study will help the sector act wisely in enhancing benefits from forests while developing a sustainable forest-based bioeconomy. FAO, in partnership with its members and partners, will continue promoting the potential of forests as solutions to global challenges, including through promoting forests at COP30 in Brazil later this year. We need to work together to unlock the full value of forests, including the most vulnerable. This includes facilitating access to forest finance and scaling up the use of data, science, and innovation. One of the aims of this GLF event is to strategize about the next decade, a decade in which action must scale up dramatically if we were to achieve the global forest goals and a better future for people and the planet. Part of this must be to redouble our advocacy for forests. This event provides us with a great opportunity to do so. Therefore, I wish the forum a complete success. Thank you.